حبيبنا وطبيب قلوبنا الرسول الأمجد المحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على Muhammad وآل. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Mujadala verse 11, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات. Allah will exalt those who believe amongst you and those who have knowledge to high ranks. Scholars and ulama, they have a high status in Islam, for they are the inheritors of the knowledge of the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salati wassalam. They are loved by the inhabitants of heaven and paradise. When you look at the face of an alim that reminds you of akhirah, is an actual form of worship. We tend to remember akhirah when we look at the face of our ulama. We remember how trivial this transient world is and how important akhirah, the permanent abode, the eternal life is, just by looking at the face of great scholars and ulama. The closest people to the high levels of the Holy Prophets and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are the ulama. They come right after them, for they hold their knowledge, the knowledge of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salati wassalam, and they are the ones who are known for piety in the highest of its standards. When one compares the scholar to a worshipper, we see a hadith by the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that the sleep of a scholar is greater and more valuable than the worship of the worshipper. O Ali, a 2 rak'ah of prayer made by a scholar is more valuable than 70 rak'ah made by a worshipper. 2 rak'ah of a scholar is equal to 70 rak'ah that is made by a worshipper. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam said, a scholar whose knowledge is used is greater than the worship of 70,000 worshippers. The knowledge of a scholar whose knowledge is used, is greater than the deeds of a 70,000 worshipper. In other words, a scholar is not only beneficial for himself, but he benefits a society. A scholar does not just benefit himself and his family, he benefits others. He guides others to the right path. When Satan and his soldiers attack with their falsehood and deviation, the one who stands in the face of Satan is not the worshipper. The one who stands in the face of Satan and his soldiers is the alim, the scholar. He is the one who guides the community towards the right path, towards the path of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt. He is the one who answers the misconceptions, clear people's doubts, and strengthens their faith in the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salati wassalam. Even respect for scholars has been advised to such an extent that our 6th Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam said, respecting a scholar makes God happy, and disrespecting a scholar is what causes Allah's displeasure. Imam Ali alayhi salam also said that when you see a scholar, accompany him, walk with him, for you will benefit from that company. This is how Islam raised the status and the position of the scholars. The position is high. However, we have seen some people, and unfortunately some from our community, who tend to, due to misconception or due to certain doubts that they have, now regardless of the reasons, they tend to insult, mock, talk badly, humiliate, abuse our scholars and ulama. Now remember that abusing a regular mu'min is a major sin. Insulting a regular believer is a major sin in Islam. Slandering a believer, humiliating a believer is a major sin in Islam. من الذنوب الكبيرة. So imagine how great of a sin it is to slander or abuse not just a regular believer, but a believer who is a jurist, who is a faqih, who is an alim. The Imam, the Prophet says that an alim whose knowledge is used is greater than 70,000 worshippers. This is how the Prophet looks at the alim, and unfortunately there are some who, due to whatever reason they have, they insult and talk badly about ulama. Now it is a serious crime that the Holy Prophet ﷺ has warned us against, and he said that those who are not with the ulama will receive their chastisement in dunya before akhirah. It is narrated that Rasulullah ﷺ said, سيأتي زمان على الناس يفرون من العلماء كما يفر الغنم من الذئب ابتلاهم الله بثلاثة أشياء. A time will come when people will run away from scholars just like sheep run away from the wolf. When this happens, people will be tried with three things. What are these three things, Ya Rasulullah? He said, الأول يرفع البركة من أموالهم. Blessings will go away from their wealth. They get their wealth the next day, or they don't know how, all of a sudden the money is over. There's no blessing in it. How many people do you know that they make a lot of money, but at the end of the month, they don't have much that is left? Blessings will be taken away from their wealth. والثاني سلط الله عليهم سلطانا جائرا. An unjust, a tyrant, oppressive ruler will rule over them. This is the punishments in dunya. والثالث يخرجون من الدنيا بلا إيمان. They will leave this world without having proper faith, without having iman, proper iman. So neither they will have blessings in this world, and one who leaves without proper iman, where would his abodement or permanent abode is? See how serious it is? See how serious it is? When you ask some of those brothers or sisters why do you insult ulama? Why do you mock them? Some of the main misconceptions that they're going to bring is they will say, why do we follow or emulate a non-ma'soom scholar, a non-infallible scholar, when the books of hadith and the words of the Ahlul Bayt are at hand's reach? We all can search the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt. We have access to the books which contains the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt. So if we can reach to the words of the Ahlul Bayt, why do we need to follow someone who is a non-ma'soom? Yes, he has knowledge, but he is a non-ma'soom. And they would also say, aren't there some narrations which condemn taqleed and say that taqleed is wrong? So to answer these two misconceptions, or the two main misconceptions, inshallah we will look at a few points. Number one is, who are the narrators of hadith, who are ruwat al-hadith, and who are the fuqaha, the jurists? And number two, did Ahlul Bayt actually prohibit and condemn taqleed? of the jurists in their ahadith or not? We will look at it inshallah after hearing aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, alayhi afdal as-salati was-salam, used to live in the holy city of Medina. Maintaining continuous communication between himself and his Shia was becoming difficult. It wasn't easy anymore. It was very hard for him to maintain continuous communication between him and his companions and his followers. And there were two main reasons behind that. Number one, the harassment of the authorities at that time. They used to have spies over looking over the house of the Imam, who is going and who is coming out. Wherever the Imam goes, there will be spies reporting everything to the government of his movement, who is meeting with him, who is talking to him, what did the Imam say, what were the questions that were asked to the Imam. So his movement was very difficult. People who would approach him, they would face harassment from the authority at that time, those unjust governments at that time. So there was continuous harassment to the Imam and whoever meets with the Imam. And also the geographic spread of the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam at that time was also wide and large. There were Shias in Kufa, there were Shias in Basra, there were followers of the Imam in Qom, in Khurasan, in Egypt, in Yemen. You notice they're in different countries and different areas. And remember, we're talking at the times of Imam al-Baqir, so there were no means to travel fast to Medina or come back. It takes weeks or months to reach Medina if you want to ask a question to the Imam. So the Imam alayhi afdal as-salati was-salam, he taught a number of his companions, and they became learned scholars, great ulama, great scholars. And then he sent them to the areas, to the various areas. He ordered them to go to certain mosques and certain areas and appointed them as his representative in certain areas to answer people's needs, to inform people of what is halal and what is haram, to answer their fiqhi questions, to answer their ideological aqaidi questions, to keep communication with the Shia, to inform them of the message, the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, to teach the Shias in that town, so on and so forth, so forth. So basically they would guide the Shia community to the right path and solve their problems. Ali ibn al-Musayyib, he traveled from Qom all the way to Khurasan to visit Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salam, our 8th Imam, when he was in Khurasan. The distance between Qom and Khurasan is how many kilometers? 1,000 kilometers. 1,000 kilometers. He traveled that distance at that time, so it took him weeks to reach to the Imam alayhi salam. Before leaving Khurasan, he asked the Imam this question. He said to him, Yabna Rasulullah, my home is distant. It's not near, it's far. I live in Qom. And I can't reach you all the time. I can't come to you at all times. Whom should I trust to take my religious knowledge from? Valid question. Our 8th Imam, Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salam, said, Min Zakariya ibn Adam al-Qummi, al-Ma'mun ala al-Dini wa-Dunya. From Zakariya ibn Adam al-Qummi, from the city of Qom, the reliable in religious and worldly matters. So the Imam didn't tell him, you have to come to me directly. He said, whenever you have a religious issue, go to Zakariya ibn Adam, ask him, and he will answer you. Whatever answer he gives you, whatever response he gives you, this is the knowledge that you need. Go ask him for all your religious and worldly matters. Ali ibn Musayyib said that when I returned, I asked Zakariya ibn Adam about all of my needs. Shu'aib al-Aqarquqi, he also came to our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, And he asked him, sometimes I need to ask you on certain matters, but I cannot find you or I cannot reach you. Is there someone who I can ask? Imam al-Sadiq told him, yes. عليك بالأزدي, يعني أبا بصير. Go and ask Abu Basir al-Azdi. He is there. If you have a question, if you need a mas'ala, if you have a fiqhi mas'ala, an issue, ask Abu Basir al-Azdi. Another person came to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Abdullah ibn Abi Ya'fur. He came to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. He said that sometimes I have a question. Sometimes some of our companions, they come and ask me questions and I don't know the answer. And I cannot reach you at all times. So what should I do? Who should I ask? The Imam said, ما يمنعك عن محمد بن مسلم الثقفي فإنه سمع من أبي وكان عنده وجيها. What prevents you from asking Muhammad ibn Muslim al-Thaqafi? For he is a person who listened, who studied under my father, and he was a notable in the eyes of my father. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. Referring to specialists, referring to experts. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل. So referring to specialists, referring to experts is not something that is weird or that alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. It is something that is normal. It is something that is natural. Take a look around. Observe all kinds of matters around you, all aspects of your life. You will notice that there are three things. There are things that you do without referring to any specialist. Things that you will do without referring to any expert. Like drinking water. This drinking water. Do I ask an expert that should I drink water or I should not? Didn't I do an act? You do it without asking a specialist. When you feel sleepy, what do? You go and sleep. Do you ask a specialist? See, you don't need to ask a specialist for that. If you want to call your relatives, your mother, your father, to ask them about your health, would you need to refer to a specialist? Should I call my father or mother? Or you just take the phone and call them? When you want to visit them, do you need to ask a specialist? Or you just go and visit? Things that you do in life and you don't ask any specialist. There are also things in life that you avoid without asking a specialist. Like what? Drinking poison. Do you need to ask a specialist, should I drink poison or not? Or you just avoid it from the beginning? Do you sleep in the middle of the way, in the middle of the road? Or you avoid doing that because it's dangerous? Or do you need to ask a specialist, well, is sleeping only limited to safe areas or can I sleep in the middle of the road or on the railway? Things you avoid without asking any specialist. But there are things in life which are not clear, which require some expertise, which requires you to seek a professional. And here you are urged to go and ask a specialist. Your car breaks down and you have no idea on how to fix a car. Who would you go to? Mechanic. Why do you go to the mechanic? Well, he's the expert in fixing cars. You get sick and you are not a doctor. What are you going to do? You go to the specialist, to the doctor. You need to build a house and you have no idea of how to construct a house. Who are you going to go to? An architect, a construction company, engineer. Why? So that you can get a proper house. If you want to fix your car and you don't know how to fix a car and you don't go to a mechanic, you go to a farmer, for example, and then your car breaks down even more, would people blame you? Or would people say, no, mashallah, you did a great job, you took it to the farmer? You see? This is something that is rational. This is something that is logical. People will blame you if you don't go to the expert in matters like these. So you would naturally go to the expert. It's not something to think about. It is something that is natural. Every rational human being would actually do this. When they are in need of something and they don't know what to do, they would go to the specialist. You would go ask a farmer if you want to fix up your garden, your backyard, and you have no idea of how to farm or how to plant trees or flowers or so on and so forth. You would go to the mechanic if you need to fix a car. You go to the doctor when you're sick. That's something that is natural. That same logic applies to religious duties and religious ahkam. There are things that you know it is wajib without referring to experts, to the jurists. Like what? Praying 5 times a day. Every Muslim is obligated to pray 5 times a day. It is wajib to pray 5 daily prayers. Did you need to ask a marja to know that you need to pray 5 times a day? Or even the non-Muslims know that Muslims must pray 5 times a day. Just the hukum of praying 5 times a day, not the details of the prayer. Just that specific hukum. Muslims must fast the month of Ramadan. Do you need a marja to tell you Muslims must fast the month of Ramadan? Or this is what we call general knowledge. Things that you do, things that you know that it is obligatory, and you don't need to ask the expert. And there are things that you avoid without the need of asking an expert. Like you avoid drinking wine. Everybody knows that Muslims, it's haram in Islam to drink wine. No Muslim drinks wine. Why? Because it is haram. Do you need to ask a jurist to know that it is haram or halal? Something that is common sense. Common knowledge. Everyone knows that. But there are also issues where we do not know the exact hukum. Like, how exactly should I pray? What are the details of prayer? I know there are 5 wajib prayers, but how exactly should I pray it? I need to ask the jurist. What are the mufattirat of the month of Ramadan? Well, I need to ask a jurist. How do we buy and sell in Islam? What is halal in buying and selling in Islam? Is interest halal or not? Is this transaction with interest halal or haram? Is trading cryptocurrency, for example, is it halal or haram? I have to ask the specialist. There are things that we don't know. Is trading currencies halal or haram? I have to ask the specialist. So there are things in fiqh where, and there are most of the things, where we need to ask a specialist to know our hukum. So this thing, ruju'ul jahili ila al-alim, return of someone who does not know to those who have knowledge, this thing is natural. Just like when I need to go to the mechanic to fix my car, I would ask the jurist when I have a mas'ala. Whenever I have an issue with regards to medicine, I would go to the doctor. Whenever I have an issue with regards to fiqh, where would I go to? To the marja, to the mujtahid, to the faqih, to the jurist. This is something that is logical, rational. So before even discussing an ayah or a hadith, it's a logical, rational concept. Now, in the times of the imams, there were certain religious experts who were trained by the imam, alayhi afdal salati wassalam, to mediate between the people and their imam. The likes of Zurara ibn A'yan, Muhammad ibn Muslim, Barid al-Ajali, Abu Basir. Their role was very significant at that time. It was very important at that time. To the extent that our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, said, أُمَنَاءُ اللَّهِ عَلَى حَلَالِهِ وَحَرَامِهِ لَوْلَا هَؤُلَاء انقطعت آثار النبوة واندرست. They are Allah's trusted ones in His rulings. If it wasn't for them, the traces of prophethood would have been cut off and vanished. See how important their role was. And who were they? They were experts trained by the imam. They were mujtahid. They were ulama who reached to the level of ijtihad. They were like the maraja of today. The imam praises them like that. Without them, the traces of prophethood would have vanished and cut off. Moreover, Even though our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, he was in the city of Medina. He went to his loyal companion, Aban ibn Taghlib. And we talked a bit about Aban in the previous lectures. We said how his death was painful to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Imam al-Sadiq said that the death of Aban has made agony and pain in my heart. This is how great Aban ibn Taghlib was. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, who was residing in the city of Medina, he said to his student Aban ibn Taghlib, اجلس في مسجد المدينة وافت الناس فإني أحب أن يرى في شيعتي مثلك. He commanded him to sit in the mosque of Medina, Masjid al-Nabi, and give fatwa to the people. For I like to see amongst my followers people like you. Imam is in Medina and he's telling his student Aban, you go and give fatwa to people. Do you realize now that the system of Marji'iyah is established from that time? From the times of Imam al-Baqir. He was alive. Imam al-Baqir, we're talking, followed by 6 other Imams after him. Imam al-Sadiq, Imam al-Kadhim, Imam al-Rida, Imam al-Jawad, Imam al-Hadi, al-Askari, and Sahib al-Asr wa zaman, Ajallah ta'ala farajul sharif. From that time, in the same city. And this is logical. Now, think about it. Think about it. If there is an alim that's sitting here in the Muassasa, and there's about 10,000 Shias in the city, if they all want to ask him a question, can he cater to all 10,000 at once? Well, the Imam is in Medina, yes, but the Imam has many roles and duties. And there are many Shias and many people who have questions. So that's why he commanded his students, do you go and sit, explain, teach, give fatwa, so that you can guide people. This group of elite students of the Imam, this group of experts, they were known as Ruwatul Hadith. They were known as Hadith narrators. Some people imagine that Ruwatul Hadith, those people, their only task is like a voice recorder. They basically just transmit the hadith of the Imam word for word without explaining it after or giving any explanation to it. They are not authorized to explain or teach or understand or explain the hadith or interpret the hadith to anyone. Their job is only to transmit the words and leave people to understand the hadith as they want. So they basically just read a hadith and, well, you guys understand it the way you'd like to understand. This is clearly not right. The Ruwatul Hadith, one of their roles is, yes, to transmit the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt. But such great students who have listened to all these hadith of Ahlul Bayt and studied under the Imam, they don't have the authority to explain. And they leave this authority to a person like me who knows nothing. Open up Al-Kafi. Al-Kafi, one of the main Shia hadith books. Open up volume 7. You will read many rulings that were given, rulings and verdicts that were given by the companions of the Imam. Not narrating the hadith. They give the verdict. They give the ruling of the based on their understanding. They give a fatwa, just like the Risala Amaliyah. Open up page 83 of Al-Kafi, volume 7 of Al-Kafi. You will see a dedicated chapter to the views and fatawa of Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman, without narrating the hadith from his teacher and master Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salam. Page 95 of volume 7 of Al-Kafi. Shaykh al-Kulayni, he writes the notions of Fadl ibn Shadhan, the student of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. And Shaykh al-Kulaini did not protest. Why didn't you, O Fadl, narrate the hadith of the Imam and you explained the fatwa with your own words? Volume 7 of Al-Kafi, page 92. Umar ibn Udayna, he visited Zurar ibn A'yan. Umar ibn Udayna, a companion. He had a number of ahadith. And it seems that these ahadith, were conflicting. Each one was saying a different thing. He did not know which one is right, which one is wrong. So he went to the expert at that time, Zurara ibn A'yan. He told him, "Oh Zurara, I have these number of ahadith and I don't know which one is right, which one is wrong. Can you tell me which one is right, which one is wrong?" Zurara ibn A'yan said, "I will inform you and I will not narrate to you." Which means that when things are mixed up, put the hadith aside because you are not an expert. Put the hadith aside, I will give you the fatwa, the conclusion right away. And that's what Zurara said. I will inform you, but I will not narrate to you. So I will inform you of the hukum without the need of you going into the details of getting into the right mas'ala, because when you face conflicting ahadith, there are ways to solve it. Those who are experts, those who are mujtahideen, they know, they have the skill set of how to solve conflicting ahadith. So Zurar ibn A'yan, instead of talking to confuse Udayna, Umar ibn Udayna with the details of how to fix or how to reach to a conclusion when there are conflicting ahadith, he said, "I will inform you, I'll give you the end result. I'll give you the end result. This is halal, this is haram. And don't worry about all that because it requires a lot of details." And that's what our maraja do. Our maraja, they give us the final conclusion based on their understanding of the Quran and Hadith, based on their research. They'll tell you at the end, this is wajib, this is makruh, this is mustahab, this is mubah, this is haram. So in the Risala Amaliyah, they give you the end result, the conclusion, to simplify life for you. So in summary, Hadith narrators, Ruwatul Hadith, their job is what? To transmit the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. That's one of their roles. And their other role is to provide religious rules that are needed by people, to provide a fatwa that is needed by people. Dawood ibn al-Husayn, one day he came to our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. He asked him that I've encountered two different views from two of your companions. I asked companion X, he said something. I asked companion Y, he said something else. Both of them are mujtahideen, ulama, they're both are your students, but each one is giving me a different fatwa. What should I do? Who did he come to? Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Meaning he was at the life of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. What do you think Imam al-Sadiq responded? Did he tell him, "Oh, disunity, and there are problems, and now the ulama are differing, and each one is giving a fatwa, and we have a problem, and what are we going to do? Da'ad din," all that stuff that we always complain, and now Eid is coming, and we're going to hear that soon. Don't we hear that all the time? The unity of the Muslims and all that stuff? Who cares about the unity of the Muslims more? Us or the Imam? The Imam, did he say that? He answered with a very simple. He gave three conditions. He didn't even answer him which mas'ala is right or which viewpoint is right. He told him in three simple words, فَلْيَنْظُرْ إِلَىٰ أَفْقَهِهِمَا وَأَعْلَمِهِمَا بِأَحَادِيثِنَا وَأَوْرَعِهِمَا فَيُنَفِّذْ حُكْمًا. When one faces such a situation, take and apply the ruling of the most learned in jurisprudence, in fiqh, the most knowledgeable in our narrations, in our hadith, and the most pious from amongst them. What do our maraja say? When you have to follow someone, who do you have to follow? The most knowledgeable, the a'lam, the most knowledgeable. What does the most knowledgeable mean? Most knowledgeable in fiqh, most knowledgeable in hadith, most knowledgeable in Quran. Right? And you have to follow a marji' who is an adil. What does adil mean? Does not commit sins, pious. What did the Imam say? 1,100 years later or 1,200 years later, and we're still going through the same system that the Imam himself established. Our ulama are still running on the same system. That system that was established by the Imams, alayhim afdal salatu wasalam, themselves. All these conditions that you see in the Risala Amaliyah, and you're wondering, where did it come from? It came from the Imam. Where did it come from? From the Imam himself. So right now, brothers and sisters, when we face an issue, a difference between ulama or fuqaha, follow the command of the Imam. Follow the one who is the most knowledgeable and the one who is most pious amongst them, and follow his lead. See how simple it is? The Imam simplified it for us. But those who don't want to take the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have to face difficulties. They made it difficult amongst themselves, not Ahlul Bayt. Ahlul Bayt really simplified it for us. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. So as we said, the narrators of hadith, their roles, they have two major roles. One, transmit the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt word for word. Number two, issue fatwa. Our maraja nowadays, a cleric, a religious cleric, does not become a mujtahid unless he masters these two roles. Let's take the example of Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali al-Husayni Sistani, the current marja of the age. If you look at his license, his ijazat al-ijtihad from his teachers, his teacher Ayatollah Khoi, what does he say in the license? And the license is available on sistani.org. You can read it for yourself. In the license itself, Ayatollah Khoi mentions, وقد أجزته أن يروي عني جميع ما صحت لي روايته من الكتب الأربعة الكافي والفقيه والتهذيب والاستفصاء. Indeed, I permitted him to narrate from me all narrations that I'm eligible to narrate from the four books that we rely on most, Al-Kafi, Al-Faqih, Al-Tahdhib, and Al-Istibsa. In that same license, Ayatollah Khoi says, أدرك والحمد لله مناه ونال مبتغاه وفاز بالمراد وحاز ملكة الاجتهاد. He prays to Allah, has grasped his aim, has reached the degree of ijtihad, and has gotten the competency to derive laws. So when the Sayyid became a mujtahid, when he received his license, his ijazat al-ijtihad from his teacher, he received two ijazas. One, to narrate hadith, and one, to derive laws from the ahadith, from the sources. Ijtihad. He got another license from his other teacher, Ayatollah Sheikh Hassan al-Hilli, one of the great teachers. He also said, وَقَدْ أَجَزْتُ لِجَنَابِهِ أَنْ يَرْوِي عَنِّي مَا صَحَّتْ لِي رِوَايَتُهُ بِأَسَانِيدِ عَنْ مَشَايِخِنَا الْعِظَامِ. I authorized him to narrate from me all narrations that I am eligible to narrate by my chain of narrations through my great mentors. In that same ijazah, he said, وقد كثرت المذاكرة معه فوجدته بالغا مرتبة الاجتهاد وقادرا على الاستنباط. And due to numerous discussions that we had with him, I found him had reached a degree of ijtihad, the degree of ijtihad, and skilled to derive laws, religious laws. So even Sheikh Hassan al-Hilli, same thing. He gave him an ijazah in transmitting the ahadith and ijazah in deriving the laws. Also his other teacher, Ayatollah Sheikh Agha Buzurg al-Tahrani, he also gave him ijazat al-ijtihad. And he also mentioned in this ijazah that he has permission to narrate a hadith from me, and he has the ability to derive laws as well. So all of our ulama, when they get their ijazat al-ijtihad, they have these two main roles of ruwatul hadith is mentioned in their ijazah. That they are eligible to narrate the hadith from me, they can transmit the hadith, and they have the ability to derive laws. They have reached the degree of ijtihad. And of course, these licenses, you can find it on sistani.org. When you read about the Sayyid, you can find the licenses in Arabic, and it's translated in English as well, if you would like to read it for yourself. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One more point, and inshallah we'll end it. And I'll explain it simply. Some people say, well, there are some ahadith that prohibit taqleed or condemn taqleed from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. So what do we say about these ahadith? Taqleed, the banned taqleed or the condemned taqleed by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam has a complete different meaning and is not related to our topic at all. Let me give you an example. Have you heard of Mus'haf Fatima? What is Mus'haf Fatima? Is it the Quran? Or is it just a book written by Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayyidah Zahra salamullah alayha? She gave the book of Fatima. She used to narrate to him, and Amir al-Mu'mineen used to write it down. Isn't it that? Today, when you say Mus'haf, what's the first book that comes into your mind? Quran al-Karim. What do Wahhabis say about us? They say, oh, you have Mus'haf Fatima, so you have a Quran different from our Quran, the Quran of Fatima. Habibi, Mus'haf in Arabic means book. Any book is called Mus'haf. Any papers, when you combine them together, what do you call them? Mus'haf. So Mus'haf Fatima means the book of Fatima. And Al-Mus'haf al-Karim, Quran al-Karim, is also called because it's a book. So when Wahhabis, they say, oh, you have a different Mus'haf. Habibi, Mus'haf means book, no more than that. It's not the Quran. It is a book that is different from the Quran. Just like how the Wahhabis misunderstood our definition of, or what we mean by Mus'haf, those brothers and sisters who condemn taqleed, they have misunderstood what does taqleed actually mean in these riwayat. There are three types of taqleed. The first type of taqleed is when someone does taqleed in aqa'id, in issues of ideology, principles of Islam, principles of faith. Brothers and sisters, tell me, did you believe in Allah because a marja' told you to believe in Allah? Or because it was proven to you? What was it? Proven to you. Did you believe in the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam because a scholar told you, or because you have faith in it? It was proven to you that Rasulullah is the final of the prophets. Did you believe in akhirah because a marja' told you, or because you believe in it? You believed in it. It has to be proven to you, right? You did not follow a marja' to say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. You accepted Islam, you accepted the prophethood, you accepted the imamah, then you followed the maraj'. You don't follow a marja'. It was all proven to you. Issues of aqa'id, you must research for yourself. You must think about it for yourself. You must believe in it yourself. You cannot follow anyone. Not just the hadith condemned, the Quran condemned. The Quran condemned the mushrikeen who used to follow the religion of their forefathers. Why? Their forefathers were mushrikeen. What was their excuse for not accepting Islam? Well, my forefather doesn't accept it, so I'm not going to accept it. The Quran tells you, think. When it comes to aqa'id, yes, think. And you need each point in aqa'id to be proven to you rationally. So we talk and we discuss it rationally. All of our aqa'id can be proven rationally. From the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala till the day of judgment. It has to be proven to yourself. This, you don't do taqleed in it. And that's why all those who have studied aqa'id, you notice how much we discuss on the proofs and the details and so on and so forth. Why? Because you have to believe in it yourself. So, doing taqleed in aqa'id is what? Prohibited. There is another type of taqleed, which is called taqleed of the analogist. Qiyas Abu Hanifa. There are some scholars who, when they face an issue and they don't know how to derive it from the Quran or Hadith, or they cannot find an answer to it, what do? They'll think to themselves and see some similarities that they decide, and they say, okay, based on this, the fatwa is that. So they do qiyas. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam condemned qiyas, and he had so many debates with Abu Hanifa. And I'm sure during the martyrdom of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, when we commemorate his martyrdom, you've heard many lectures or many of the debates that he had with Abu Hanifa against qiyas, disproving qiyas. Shi'as do not believe in qiyas because Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they condemned qiyas. So following scholars who utilize that tool, qiyas, is false, is wrong. It's condemned by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal as-salati was-salam. That is the second type of taqleed. There is a third type which is called the taqleed of the jurist, which means you put the responsibility of your acts on the neck of the expert. It is called referring back to the expert. Those jurists who studied the Quran and the Hadith, and based on their understanding of the Quran and Hadith, they will give you a fatwa or give you the conclusion. They will derive laws based on their understanding of the Quran and Hadith. They will not derive laws from their head or ask or utilize qiyas like Abu Hanifa. They will only derive laws from the Quran and Hadith based on the understanding and based on the proofs that are there from the Quran and the Hadith. They spent the entirety of their life, they dedicated their life in studying the Quran and the hundreds of thousands of ahadith, and they, based on their study, they will give you with a conclusion that the fatwa is 1, 2, 3. I am not an expert. I don't have the time to go and search in all these ayat and ahadith. So the natural thing is to what? Refer to the expert. Which type of expert? The experts who dedicate their lives in studying the Quran and Hadith, and based on their understanding of the Quran and Hadith, what do? They will tell you the conclusion that they understand from the Quran and Hadith, not from their own mind or from somewhere else. And this taqleed is the taqleed that is commanded by the Ahlul Bayt, which is similar to the taqleed that the Imam said, Ijlis to Aban ibn Taghlib, Ijlis fi Masjid al-Madinah wafti nas. Similar to this one. Similar to the referral to Zakaria ibn Adam al-Qummi when Imam Rida referred him to that. Similar to the referrals to Abu Basir al-Azdi and Muhammad ibn Muslim al-Thaqafi and this group of mujtahideen and experts at the time of the Imams. So the third type of taqleed is completely different from the two that are condemned. If you see a hadith or a riwayah that condemns taqleed, it condemns the first two. The taqleed in aqaid and the taqleed of the analogists, the taqleed of qiyas, the taqleed that includes qiyas, the taqleed of Abu Hanifa. That's similar to Abu Hanifa. Keep that in mind to remember it. While the taqleed that is natural and that is accepted and that the Ahlul Bayt have referred to is the taqleed of the jurists, which we all do today. And that is the natural continuation of Ruwatul Hadith, the Hadith narrators that were there at the times of the Imam. We have it now here at our times nowadays. I won't take much of your times. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi al-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahsan Allah alaykum. Yes.
So, I have a question, but it's like one of my questions. So, she just like started wearing the hijab.
Mhm.
She's 9, and she was wondering like how come like girls who are not allowed have to wear the hijab, but some girls still don't wear it.
Well, it is an obligation to practice hijab and wear hijab. And it is wajib to wear it at the age of 9. But some decide not to practice, just like some people decide to lie and they know that lying is haram. And some people decide not to pray, and they know that praying is wajib. So it is a hukum from the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is wajib to do it. However, if one decides not to do it, then they're disobeying Allah in that specific hukum. Just as someone who decides not to pray the 5 daily prayers, they've disobeyed Allah in not praying. So those people have disobeyed Allah in not wearing the hijab. Wearing the hijab is wajib, yes, for girls who are 9 years of age and up. 9 years hijri. Yes. There was a question from the back? Yes. There is a possibility that Eid will be Friday, and there's also a possibility that Eid will be Saturday. The answer will be tomorrow night, inshallah. Tomorrow night, inshallah, when we all will come here, inshallah, we'll get the news. Either Eid will be on Friday and we'll congratulate each other the night before, or we will know that Eid will be Saturday, so we'll ask you to come back again on Friday, so we'll have another event, another program. So the answer is tomorrow, inshallah, not today. We have to do moon sighting for us to know when Eid is. So it depends on moon sighting. So tomorrow at sunset, it is highly recommended to do moon sighting. Usually, if the weather allows it, we usually go on Malden Park right now. Malden Park, on the hill over there, and we'll do moon sighting there. So you are all encouraged to come tomorrow at sunset, مو at Maghrib, at sunset. يعني about 8 p.m. Around 8 p.m. we meet over there at Malden. If we get to see the moon, then you'll know when Eid is. If we don't see the moon, then we will wait for some reports in surrounding areas. If we get something, then we'll tell you. If not, then Eid will be on Saturday. So it's nothing to worry about today. Worry about it tomorrow. There is a way to. We don't need to use binoculars or things like that. The reason is because we are obliged to look at it with our naked eye. But we do know where the moon is. There are certain programs that will tell us where is the location of the moon. So once we know that, for example, the location of the moon is here, so we will all be looking at this angle to see the moon. So we use technology in knowing where the location of the moon, but we cannot depend on the telescope or the binoculars or that in seeing the moon. You need to see it with your own naked eye. Yes. And he has fulfilled his obligations with regards to fasting, but he hasn't fulfilled his obligation with regards to prayer. Yani he has to do qada for all of his salawat, and he is committing a sin for every time he intentionally does not pray. Yani he does not have to do qada. But if you're talking on a fiqhi perspective or on a moral perspective. Fiqhi perspective, he did his obligation of siyam. But is the point of siyam just staying away from the mufattirat, or one of the reasons of the siyam is that we actually should stay away from what is haram? Didn't the Imam say that when you fast, all your faculties, all your body parts must fast? So your tongue must fast, and your eyes must fast, and your ears must fast, and your hands and legs and so on, they all must fast. What does it mean? That all your faculties, all the faculties of the body fast. Means that obey Allah and fulfill the commands of Allah. So, from a fiqhi perspective, he fasted. He doesn't have to do qada, or he doesn't have a kafara for the 30 days of Shahr Ramadan that he fasted. But the point of fasting is to actually obey Allah and have a stronger willpower against haram. So for his salawat, his obligation is to do qada for all of what he did not pray. And he needs to start now before tomorrow. Because I wonder what will happen to him if the angel of death visits him at this moment and he does not pray. The adab of the qabr before, or the adab of the sakarat al-maut and adila and al-maut before entering the grave is great. Imagine entering there, what's going to be and what's going to be in the day of judgment. So it is important to take salah seriously. The Imam said, لا تنال شفاعتنا مستخفا بالصلاة. One who is careless and indifferent about his salah, our intercession, the intercession of the Imam does not reach. Careless means he does not have consider it a priority. He's offering it, but at the end of time. Yani, let's go play, let's go do anything, let's do that, but not the one who does not pray. Forget even the shafa'ah. And one cannot enter Jannah without the shafa'ah of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. So when the shafa'ah does not reach the one who is indifferent and careless about his salah, that means let him forget about something that is called Jannah. Again, unless Allah wants to forgive him, His mercy, that's another story. But one needs to really take salah seriously. Salah is amud ad-din. In qubilat qubila ma siwaha. Wa in ruddat rudda ma siwaha. If salah is accepted, all your other deeds will be taken in consideration. If salah is not accepted, then all the other deeds would not be taken into consideration. And the hadith is very famous. And all Muslims agree on it. Yes.
I know this might sound like a stupid question, but I just want to know. So, if someone is like, someone's leading the prayer and you're showing so that you kind of pray differently, like, if they lead it and then you join it, but you still do it yours, like your way.
Yeah, you do it. Yani, you whisper Surah Al-Fatiha and the short surah when you're following them.
Like you're praying like you join it.
So as if you're praying on your own, but you're following. That's how it is. Right, Sheikhna? Praying behind a Sunni Imam, you would be reciting Al-Fatiha and the short surah, and you would basically as if you're praying on your own, but you're following in their salah. That's how it is. Forbidden? I haven't seen this fatwa. Have you seen something like that, Sheikhna? And I saw the opposite. Actually, this is what says Sistani says, that when you're praying, pray, but recite Surah Al-Fatiha and the short surah in a whispering manner. As if you're praying on your own, but follow up with the salah. No, this is a jama'ah. You'll get the thawab of it. But this is how you have to do it. Look, Salat al-Maghrib and Isha, you, as a man, you have to read it loudly. But when you're praying with them, you're going to read it in a whispering manner. So that authorization to pray in a whispering manner is because of that fatwa. Is there any, have you seen such a hukum? That's from, say, Sistani's website. What I just said, this is the fatwa, the Sheikh has it with him. If you want to have a look at it. Yes.